So, welcome to our second yin class. And some of the postures we included in the first class, and you've done before, butterfly and sphinx, which is the yin version of cobra. And we had a couple of others, which you know. One is based on a lunge, and the other one is called, very aptly, banana. And we're all going to have a look at a mindfulness technique called labeling, and how and why this can be used in a meditation practice or in a yin practice, which, as we know, is very like meditation because of the length of time we're required to hold the posture. So before you start, make sure that you have props with you, either dedicated yoga ones, blocks, a bolster if you have one, and also blankets, some cushions you can improvise, another yoga mat maybe if you have one, you can roll up into a sausage for support for some of the postures. And if you have two thick books, preferably the same size, which are wide enough for you to place the palms of your hands on, because we have something later on which we can use those for. So if you don't have those, just pause now and go and get them, and then make sure you're in a nice, comfortable, quiet, safe place. So just a little bit about yin to begin with, just to remind you that all tissue needs a certain amount of stress to regain and maintain optimal health, and our ligaments are no different. Our connective tissue is no different. Our fascia is no different. But that stress is not stretch. We don't have to stretch the tissues in order to stress them. So what we're really trying to do in yin yoga is just apply a stress, a very gentle traction to our connective tissue. We are not trying to stretch them, although a stretch may result. But stress is our main objective. Very gentle, soft stress. And that's an important distinction, because it's through those gentle stresses that tissues are stimulated to regenerate and to stay healthy. So before we start, I'm just going to give you a minute just to move around if you need to. Make a few stretches. And most of yin is based in the lower body, so maybe a few upper body stretches before we start. Maybe a few leg raises lying on your back, a couple of twists, whatever feels nice. Or just rest as you are. So we're going to start with butterfly, so come into a sitting position. And possible props here. For many people, actually having a little pad under your hips is nice, or rolling up a yoga mat, or roll up your yoga mat, half of it, so you can sit on the little roll that you've created, just to tilt forward. If you've got any lower back problems which make rounding the spine painful, then you can do this pose on the back. You can also pad under the knees if there's any pain in a seated position. And if the neck starts to ache, or you have any issues with the neck and the shoulders, you can rest your elbows on your legs and your head in your hands if your neck starts to ache. So the first tenet of yin yoga, you're going to come in mindfully and find your first edge, your first point of resistance. So shift the buttocks back to roll onto the front edge of your sitting bones, and settle in with awareness to your breath. Just noticing how the breath is, how soft it is, how gentle it is, how natural it is, or maybe it's not, just noticing how the breath is. Calm in a little bit before you come into the pose. Bring the hands onto the floor in front of you, and then swaying very gently from side to side. Slowly come down bit by bit, allowing the spine to round. So the soles of your feet together, and you're making a triangular shape with the lower body. Find your first sensation of stretch. Seek out and find where that is. Again, a moment we're just coming into the pose. So just noticing where you feel it most keenly. Is it along your spine? Is it somewhere else in your back? Is it on your inner thighs? Is it on the outer thighs? Is it on the groin? Is it in the neck? Is it in the shoulders? Where do you feel that first point of tension and resistance? You go there. That's your edge. That's your appropriate edge. And then we come to the second tenet of Yin Yoga. You become still. If you haven't already, you slowly become still. And then the third tenet, you hold the posture and you breathe. Just noticing how your natural breath is. Just how your breath is. Just observe your breath. You're orientating yourself towards the practice, so your breath may not be as relaxed at the moment as it will be as the class progresses. Just noticing, observing your breath. And well over a minute has passed. You might find, if you allow gravity to embrace you a little bit more, you might find that you can find another edge, maybe a little bit, maybe the edge of your resistance has softened and you can release down a bit more for the last minute. And the fourth facet of Yin Yoga, releasing from the posture with care, coming out mindfully and slowly, hands on the floor. It's fairly obvious how you come out of this pose, and just press the floor away with your hands as you slowly come up to an erect position. And then just straighten the legs out in front of you. Bring the hands behind you, turn the palms to face away with the hands on the floor, and gently lean back into the arms. Allow the chest to lift, the shoulders to gently drop. If you feel comfortable, you can allow your head to drift up as well, arching the upper spine. And then very mindfully, so not making any sudden movements, but there's a certain purpose to your movements. You slowly come over to lie on your front and make a pillow with your hands, either placing your forehead on the top hand or turning your head to one side. Before we do Sphinx pose. So props that you might want to use here, which can be used to either accentuate the pose or to make it gentler, are a rolled blanket. It's rolled into a sausage shape, or a cushion. So have those handy. We'll come into the position and you can play around, see what works best for you. So clasp your elbows with the opposite hands, and then move the elbows just ahead of your shoulders, propping yourself up, lifting your head. And notice how that feels in your lower back. If the sensations are too strong, you can move your elbows further ahead, lowering your chest close to the floor. And in terms of the props, you can have the cushion under the upper ribs or support under your upper ribs like a roll of blanket. That makes the pose more restorative. That lessens the arch in your lower back. Alternatively, you can put it under the lower ribs, which elevates the chest a bit higher and makes the arch a little bit more pronounced and makes the pose a bit stronger. We're still finding our way into the best position before we come to stillness. The hands can either have the palms of the hands together in a prayer type position, or you can have the palms of the hands flat on the floor, like the Sphinx that gives this posture its name. And then become still. And then hold for 3 minutes. So looking at the mindful practice of labeling, starting to look at it now and then continuing in the next poses. So what is the basic principle of labeling to follow if another object, we'll call it an object, impinges on your awareness and draws you away from the technique you're focusing on, in this instance, the breath. So if another object impinges strongly on your awareness, so it draws you away from that focus on your breathing, you clearly note what has drawn you away. For example, we'll look at the senses. If it's a loud sound or a sound which catches your attention, consciously direct your attention towards that sound. Be aware of that sound as a direct experience. And identify it, label it with a soft internal verbal label. Simple one here would be hearing. Hearing. When the sound fades or is no longer occupying you, your attention, come back to your focus on the breath. That's the basic principle to follow for labeling. So looking at the senses, the most likely sense that's going to disturb you will be your ears, your hearing. Your eyes are closed. Eyes take in the most distractions for us, so closing them gets rid of many of the distractions. Smell might occur, in which case just label it smell. You may be also drawn to internal sounds of your breathing, for example, and treat that in the same way that you would an external sound. Just label it hearing. And to come out of the pose, gently slide the elbows out to the side after you've removed any props you have under your chest or your ribs. And then make a pillow with the hands again. If you had your forehead on the hands, place the forehead on the hand again, hands again. If you turn the head to one side before, then turn it to the other side this time. And just rest, just noticing the sensations in your lower back. Imagine your internal energy, your chi is pooling in that area. And those sensations will subside for different people over different periods of time. When you feel that those sensations have subsided adequately, you bring the hands under the shoulders and you very gently push back to child's pose. Your bottom comes back towards your heels. Your hands come back towards the body and rest there with your head down and your chest down in your preferred version of child's pose. So find a position where the back is now in a neutral position, relaxed position, the spine. And then slowly coming to sit up. And again, the main prop here will be something under your bottom, just to tilt you forward. And we're going to do a pose which has different names. It's called half butterfly. It's also called half dragonfly or half straddle stance. So from a seated position, you draw one foot in towards you and stretch the other leg, the right leg, out to the side. So draw the left leg towards you. Bring the sole of the left foot under the inside of the right thigh and the right leg out to the side at whatever angle is comfortable for you. And we're going to fold down the center, and then we're going to fold over the right leg. And then we're going to fold over the center, and then we're going to fold over the left leg. So beginning folding over the center, it's going to be 2 minutes each time. So from here, bring the hands onto the floor in front of you. And very gently begin to fold forward until you meet your first resistance, your first edge, which will be more obvious to you, to most people, than it was in the last posture, butterfly. This half position, there are more limits imposed on the body by the template that you've adopted. Allow the back to round. Remember, if you have any serious problems with your lower spine or your lower back, don't allow the back to round. Keep the spine straight. So, for sensations that arise for you in the body, you have to choose a slightly more descriptive term to label them. It may be warmth that you're aware of that's drawn your attention, warmth somewhere in the body. It might be coldness somewhere in the body. Label it warmth. Label it coldness. It might be a pressure. Label it pressure. It might be a hardness. Label it hardness. Whatever labels that come to you. There's no need for complex language. And then slowly push the floor away with the hands and come up to a vertical position. Then gently turn towards your right leg in your own time, no hurry, and fold over your right leg. Are there any unpleasant sensations in the left knee? Do you need to pad under the left knee with a cushion? Do that if you need to. The hands are either side of your right leg, and you're folding over your right leg. 2 minutes. So we've looked at the senses, labeling sound and hearing, and sensations in the body. And then we come to mental objects which distract you or move you away from your breathing. And these can seem to be a bewildering diversity of different mental objects, but actually they fall into just a few clear categories. They are thinking, ruminating. Maybe you don't even know what you're thinking about. Maybe imagining, visualizing something happening. Maybe remembering, looking to the past. Maybe planning, looking to the future. Maybe what you're going to do after class or later in the day. So those are simple labels when you notice. Planning, visualizing, remembering, imagining, or any other simple categories that you can label those mental objects with. And then slowly coming back up to an erect position, and in your own time, in your own way, changing. So there's going to be your left leg out to the side and the right foot on the inside of the left thigh. And then you're going to fold down the center as you did before. Bring the hands onto the floor and slowly move forward, find your first edge. It's quite a strong pose for many people, so you may only find that one edge. You just might be playing with just millimeters in terms of being able to move further forward after a little while, but you just be content to be where you are. Then we got the mental objects of feelings. And they may not be big and dramatic feelings, which attract your attention. But look closely and don't dismiss anything that appears to you. The emotion may be as small as a very common one, boredom. The mind getting bored because your body's not moving. Maybe irritation or impatience, and sometimes contentment arising. The key is just to notice what is arising without judging yourself, whatever's there. So you're not criticizing yourself for being restless or bored, but nor are you congratulating yourself for feeling content or enjoyment. Just notice what is happening and watch it change, because it will change. Label it and watch it, and then move back to your breath. And then come slowly up again. Pause. And when you feel the internal cue to move on, so you're doing it with a certain amount of definition, you're turning and you're folding down over your left leg, hands either side of the left leg. And 2 minutes here. So we've looked at senses, labeling, sounds, for example. We've looked at sensations occurring in the body. Maybe it's them. Warmth and pressure and coldness and hardness. We looked at mental objects like thinking and visualizing and planning and remembering and reminiscing. And we've looked at some feelings, just examples like boredom and irritation, impatience, contentment, enjoyment. We notice them. We observe them without becoming involved or judging. And then we return to the breath. And then slowly, pushing the floor away with the hands, slowly coming up. And then making both legs straight. And two choices here briefly, either keeping both legs separated in dragonfly and folding down the center, or bringing both legs together, bending them if you need to, if you want to, and folding down over your thighs, allowing the spine to bend. Just 1 minute in that symmetrical position. And then slowly coming up. Bringing the legs together if they were separated. And you might want to do what you did before, just leaning back into the hands, bringing the hands behind you, fingers pointing away, and gently lean back into the arms. Just take a very mild back bend there. And then find your way down to lie on your back in relaxation pose. Shavasana. Arms to the side, legs separated, and just enjoy, feel the rebound effects of those forward bends that you've just done. And the next pose is banana. So, or banana asana, as some people call it. Not a traditional pose, I'm sure. So to get into this position, just to remind you, you lie on your back as you're doing, and you bring your legs together, straight on the floor, and you reach the arms over the head, and you gently clasp your hands, or you clasp your elbows with the opposite hands, or somewhere in between the wrist and the elbow. and keeping your buttocks firmly glued to the earth. So you're being careful not to roll or twist your hips off the floor. You slowly begin to move your feet and your upper body to the right until you find your first edge, the first point of resistance, the first limitation. Just check again that your hips haven't rolled off the floor. And 4 minutes this side and 4 minutes the other side. There's one variation to come after about a minute, but for now just staying in that position, which is giving your feet a lovely lateral stretch to the left side. And just noticing maybe the effect that's having on your breathing. And again, labeling, practicing that technique, labeling, sense impressions, sense objects, emotional objects. Thinking objects, physical feelings. There's only one word of slight caution in this pose, as in any pose, which is any tingling is not a good sign. You should come out. Sometimes people, because of the position of the arms, get a little bit of tingling in the arms or the hands in this position. So if that happens, then just rest the arms across the chest. An adjustment here if you want to make it. First of all, just see if now that you've loosened, can you walk your feet a little bit further across? Can you work the upper body a little bit further across to the right? And then you can try crossing your ankles. So most people feel the greatest stretch by crossing the outside ankle back over the inner one. But some feel benefit crossing it the other way. And just experiment with both of those if you haven't done this for a while. And then slowly walk your feet across to the center and your arms across to the center, and place the arms down by the side of the body. So you're lying in as straight a position as you can be in, given that you'll probably still feel you're leaning a little bit across to your right. But when you feel it's the right time for you, you do the same the other way. So you clasp the elbows over the head or the wrists, keep the buttocks glued to the floor, and you begin to walk your feet across to the left and your upper body across to the left until you find your first sensation. Just allow the body to open. So another fundamental of yin yoga is to be as muscularly unengaged as you can in all the poses. Very different from The yang poses where a certain amount of muscular strength or definition is needed to maintain a posture or to move from one posture to the other. The idea of yin postures is, for most people, you can just become muscularly unengaged in these postures. In that way, we've taken the muscles out of the equation. And you can work a little bit deeper down into the body, into the connective tissue and the fascia and the ligaments, joints. Now you might want to cross the ankle like you did the other side, just to see how it feels this side if you cross the outer ankle over the inner one, or the inner over the outer one, which one feels the best for you. The most beneficial for you. All the while, we're still breathing, we're still practicing, labeling objects. And in an hour class like this, there will be very, very many objects which appear to you. Sounds, physical feelings, emotions, mind work. And then slowly coming out, walking your feet and your arms back across until you're symmetrical on the mat again, uncrossing the ankles obviously if they were crossed. And when you're ready, gently bringing the knees up onto the chest to release the back. Maybe circle the knees, maybe gently massage the lumbar spine, the lower back on the floor. And then when you're ready, rocking up, or maybe a bit yang really when we're in this yin phase, so you might prefer to roll onto your side to come up to a sitting position. And then onto all fours and towards the back of the mat, come into child's pose, bring the bottom back towards the heels, bring the hands back towards the body, find a position where you can release the head down, the chest down, into a neutral child's pose position. And then coming out of that and onto all fours, and props you might, this is where the books may come in handy, so placing the books at the far end of the mat. This is based on a lunge, it's called dragon. There are different versions of dragon. This is called baby dragon that we're going to do today. So it's not like when you're doing up and down cats, you know, some people feel that they put a lot of pressure on their knees, the knees are a bit sensitive and need a pad under the knees. Most of our weight will be forward in this position, but you might still choose to put a blanket under what will be your left knee in this position when we get there. So from this position, you step the right foot forward and you come into a gentle lunge. The left knee is on the floor. check first, the front knee is directly above the front heel. And then tuck the toes of the back foot under, lift the left knee off the floor and slide it backwards to extend your lunge. Just to your edge, as always. Just experiment to see how far back you can comfortably go. And then let the hips sink forward and down. And as I said before, this in itself takes some of the weight off your back knee. But now maybe a point where you decide, if you haven't done it already, to pad under your back knee, or you can rest the knee and the back knee and the calf on a big cushion just to soften that position. So the hands, you will have adopted a hand position in this lunge. You can have, like you would normally have, with the fingertips on the floor, or if your flexibility allows, the palms of the hands flat on the floor. It takes quite a lot of flexibility to get to that position. So it might be the fingertips. That does create tension in your fingertips. So this is where you might want to place your right hand on one of the books, maybe just the right hand, or maybe the left hand as well, just so you've lifted yourself up a little bit. So you're searching for a place. We're still searching for a place where this pose becomes doable. We're just going to hold it for 2 minutes, and where it becomes holdable. If you're feeling it enough, if you want a little bit more pressure, you can take the hands off the floor, or if it's a more preferred position, and just rest the hands just above the knee. And become still. And then it feels nice. You slowly come out of the position, and you might want to stretch back into a very gentle downward facing dog, or bottom to heels, child's pose. But many people find downward facing dog feels very nice here. Even maybe dragon raise its tail, lifting up one leg, bending one leg. Just go with whatever feels nice for that quite strong hip stretch you've just had. And when you're ready, you set for the other side. So you come back onto your knees and you step the left foot forward. And this time, padding under your right knee if necessary. but maybe not quite yet, because that right knee might come back a little bit. Remember, the adjustment we did was to, the hands on the floor in front of you, was to tuck the toes of the back foot under and walk that foot back with the right knee off the floor, just lengthening the position a little bit, and then relaying the knee down. You can have the toes on the floor for a toe stretch, or you can have the top of the foot on the floor. It's entirely up to you. And then the hand position, either the left hand on a book or both hands on a book, if that feels nice. Just find the right position away from you or closer to you. Or the other position was to have the hands resting on your, just above your left knee and your chest up. So there you're putting more stress, more traction down through the hips. So that makes it a stronger position than having the hands on the floor, where the hands are taking a certain amount of the weight. And then become still. Hip openers like this, for many people, are some of the strongest postures, and can bring up, because of the strength of them physically, can bring up quite strong emotions as a reaction to that. But we're dealing with them in the same way. We're labeling them. We're labeling them, those physical sensations, maybe more distracting here. But you treat them the same way. The tightness, the dullness, the aching, the stretching, the stressing. The hips continue to sink forward and down. And then very slowly, although you might want to move faster if this was quite a demanding pose for you, working your way back to child's pose, or more likely downward dog, stretching out the hips, stretching one leg up in the air, bending it. And then coming onto all fours, and in whatever way works best for you, coming to lie down on your back in Shavasana, relaxation position. Legs separated, arms to the side, palms facing up, chin tucked lightly down. Since you've got a blanket there, you might find that when you come to the final relaxation, which is where I will leave you tonight, or this afternoon, or this morning, a blanket just tucked under the head can be quite nice for some people. There's some people in the class like to do that. So the final posture is twist. 3 minutes each side. So you can choose whether to do a gentle twist or a stronger twist. The gentle twist is the soles of the feet on the floor, then the knees up, and the feet separated, more than hip distance apart. So it's like a wide twist. And you gently drop your knees to the left. That's the first option. If you want to make it stronger, you need to make it stronger. Then cross your right leg over your left. Hug your back of your right thigh onto the top, front of your left thigh, and then come across to the right. Either way, you've dropped to the right. The arms are out level with your shoulders. the palms are facing up. The head is in the center, or the head can gently turn to look down your right arm, or your head can move around during the pose if it needs to. As you breathe, for most of us, when we're twisting, if we turn our mind to it, the effect on our breathing is most strongly felt here because we're compressing one lung and opening the other. And just noticing your breath. And labeling all the objects which draw you away. Observe them until they lose your interest, and then return to the breath. And then turn your head to the center if you've turned it to one side. And then use your hands to gently draw your knees back to the center. And then when you're ready, the same thing the other side. So feet separated towards the edges of your mat. Drop the knees to the right or cross the left leg over the right. And drop across to your right. Arms level with the shoulders, palms facing up. Head in the most comfortable position for your neck, which may change as the posture continues for the next 2 minutes. And bring the head slowly back to the center first. Use your hands to bring the knees back to the center. When you're ready, gently bring the knees up onto the chest, hug the knees in. Make yourself symmetrical again after that asymmetrical pose. And I'm going to leave you here So different alternatives for you here. You can either just come down into Shavasana for the next 5-10 minutes, however long you feel you need to lie there. Continue to practice the same technique of labeling, but in a position that doesn't demand anything of the body. Or you can stay. This is a nice preparation for meditation. You might want to sit in a comfortable cross-legged position or your other chosen meditation position and do that for the next 10 minutes. Again, practicing, if you want to, the labeling technique we looked at. You might want to do a few rounds of alternate nostril breathing before you come to meditation, or before you come to final relaxation. So you can do that with retention, or if you don't want to do that because you don't have me counting it, you can just inhale through the left nostril and then exhale through the right. Working towards making the exhalation double the inhalation. So we start with 8 and 4. So you inhale for 4, change nostrils, exhale for 8, inhale for 4, change nostrils, exhale for 8, inhale for 4, change nostrils, exhale to 8. And thank you for doing the class. I hope you enjoyed it. Hear from me soon. Namaste.